Okay, let's talk a little bit about the structure of the eyeball. So, I always think that the best way to sort of describe the eyeball is to basically think about it as three different layers. So we have the outermost layer, which we'll draw in green, and this is called the sclera. Now, the sclera, so I've spelled that wrong, really important to get that right. The sclera is the tough, protective outer layer. Its primary function is to protect the contents of the eyeball. Now, that actually extends around into, it doesn't just finish at the back of the eyeball, because obviously we need light to come in, but we still need to protect it. So what it actually does is it continues around into something that is called the cornea. So when you have heard of this topic called the cornea, what the cornea basically is it's an extension of that tough fibrous back, which extends translucently out of the front, and its main purpose is protection as well as refraction, which we'll talk a little bit about later. So then you have the next layer, which we'll draw in pink. Actually, you might do it in red. So this layer, you can think about this as it's called the choroid. And basically the choroid's main purpose is to vasculate the internal parts of the eye. So in other words, provide the blood supply. So this layer, this is involved with waste disposal, metabolic control, all of those kind of things you would expect when you've got that sort of vascular layer. The most innermost layer, which I think we'll do in this lighter color, lighter green, is called the retina. And that sort of sits here. So these are the levels, and as we know with the retina basically has a few interesting parts at the back. So the first part, I'm going to do it in brown here, is that we have this optic nerve coming out of the back, okay? Now the interesting thing here is this is also more commonly referred to as the blind spot, right? Everyone has a blind spot in which they can't see something, but our brain basically fills in the gaps for us. And that's what the optic nerve is. Now, there's another interesting part of this retina, which is called the fovea. And we'll draw that here. Now, the fovea is a relatively small part of the retina, but it actually does a lot. It's actually the primary place, and we'll talk about this a lot as well, but it's the primary place where cones are found, which are a type of photoreceptor. So that's sort of the back of the eye at a general level. But let's talk more about the front. So obviously we have this protective cornea layer, and we also know that there's going to be the lens and the iris and the pupil. So what ends up happening is this red area here, the choroid, it extends out, if you imagine, and these sort of extensions you can think about, these are called the ciliary body. And these are sort of muscles if you think about it. And what they do is they wrap around like this area of the lens. So the lens, running out of colors here, but the lens, let's make it pink again. So that's really what we can, what is refracting a lot of the contents. Now, the ciliary body also at the front of, so it's connecting, controlling the lens. It makes it flatter, it opens it up. It stretches it. It changes the way the lens sort of fits in the shape of it, which changes the amount and the way of the light and how the light is refracted onto the back of the eye, which we'll talk about in a sec. So then you have, once you've got these ciliary bodies, you also have at the front this pupil, and the pupil we'll draw here. And the pupil is the black area of your eye, which will make brown. Maybe I should make it black to be consistent. This is the black area of the eye, okay? And the pupil is the part that opens and closes and controls how much light is actually going to go into the lens. Now, the pupil, the interesting thing about that is it is is controlled, and what opens and closes it is the iris, which are the muscles around it. Okay, so it's really important to understand the anatomy of the eye, because when we talk about things like what happens when objects get near to the eye and how refraction works, it's really important to understand how things where the iris is, where the retina is, sorry, not the retina, where the pupil is, sorry, because all of these really are accessory structures that allow us to manage refraction. So let's talk about refraction for a sec. So putting aside that, we all know that light is the basis of vision. Eyes are just really, they work based on photoreception. So the way to think about light is light comes in, and when it hits something more dense than what it's traveling through, in this case air, it refracts. So let's say, for instance, we have a convex lens. It looks like this. That convex lens is going to, the light rays are not going to continue straight like this. Instead, what will happen is that they will be pushed in to a point of focus. And this is an example of a convex lens. And the eye is a convex lens. So if you think about this, the light is coming in, it hits this sort of lens here, if you like, and then the light, because it's hitting a more dense medium, it's refracted in. Okay, and if you think about this with the eye, what tends to happen is the light is coming in here, it hits the cornea, which is the primary point of refraction. It comes in, it hits some of these other areas, like the watery jelly area out here, which is called the aqueous humor. It hits that, and it also hits this part in here, which is sort of more like a jelly-like substance, which is the virtuous humor. And what happens is the light that's coming in like this, boom, 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 it's refracting all into one spot onto the retina. And that is then processed by this retinal layer, which is this yellow layer here, which we'll talk about later in the video. And that is the basis of how vision works. It is really, the eye is a big refractory tool. And in other videos, I'm going to run you through basically how this is the basis, and this structure and this understanding of a lens, that is the basis of things like short-sightedness, myopia, as well as some other issues like astigmatism, how that happens as well, which we'll talk about in the next video.